Hey, what's up, guys? How's it going? Welcome to the first NEWSFLASH for the Player vs. Live podcast. As always, my name is Gabo, and I will be your host. Today, I have invited my friend Sanguk Han. He is a business strategist, and he's also very knowledgeable when it comes to the stock market. The financial world was going crazy last week over the GameStop shares. He's here to explain why that happened and what can we take away from it. If you're a gamer, I think you should definitely know this information. I hope you enjoy this. So what is the story here, dude? What happened with GameStop shares?
Dude, well, last week, the financial world kind of blew up a little bit when the small little brick and mortar video game retailer in the US called GameStop saw their shares go up by a magnitude of something like 700% in the time span of 3 days.
Which is
it
ridiculous.
propelled them. Yeah, it propelled them to the largest company in what's known as the Russell 2000 index, which is the 2000 largest mid-sized companies in the US. And, if this was a company like Microsoft or even like IKEA, it would make sense, right? Because it's that's something people buy and sell all the time. But this is a company that sells video games, a digital thing, but in physical format in malls in the US, right? So you're selling something that people can consume digitally in physical format. So that's probably not a good sales channel. Right. And in malls during COVID, this is not a good business model.
Right. At the moment, it's doing terrible.
In theory, yes. The stock says otherwise, but yes.
What is the stock exactly? Help me understand. How does a company go from building a business to selling a stock?
I think the easiest way to think of a stock or shares, in this case, we're going to refer to the two as the same, is it's a representation of a company's value. So when you create a business, say it's a highly successful podcasting business, you will generate revenues. And then you will have costs because you have to pay money for your microphone, for your headsets, for your guests to come on the show. And
yeah. Very expensive guests, yeah.
Yeah, I'm expecting the check after this. But you're gonna have you're gonna make income from, your advertising revenue, for example. You take away the expenses, and you're gonna be left with some profits. And shares are effectively a representation of who gets to own the profits at the end of the day. So you can think of it as owning a share of your business's profits.
And this is what we call equity, right? A company's equity.
This is equity in the company. Yeah, absolutely. So the more that a company is generating profits or expected to generate profits in the future, you would expect having a share of the company's profits would become more and more valuable over time. So companies that generate more profits in the future will be expected to have increasing share prices going forward.
But what exactly happened with GameStop then? With GameStop shares?
In actuality, GameStop was actually a company that was targeted by a lot of investors. For purposes of this conversation, let's just call them Wall Street, yeah? Although they're not really, a lot of them aren't really on Wall Street, but a lot of Wall Street investors took a look at GameStop's business model and thought that the current valuation of the company was overvalued, that owning a share of the GameStop's profits shouldn't be valued at the price that it was at the time. So a lot of these Wall Street investors took the opposite position of betting on this company, known as shorting the company.
This trading stock system, right? How is it legal necessarily? I'm wondering if it has ever been questioned by the society, as the government being like, should this be legal?
I want to argue that equity is as old as debt. and debt is pretty damn old. Like debt is like 5,000 years old. Yeah.
I see.
Fundamentally, Gabo, you run a successful podcasting business. And you might tell me, like, it'd be great if I could increase my marketing spend because I think I could reach more people. You say, oh, but to increase the marketing spend, I need $10,000. So you go to your friend Sanguk and you go, Sanguk, I mean, I could make $10,000 by just saving money, but it would take me, 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Can you just give me $10,000 now? And in return, I'll give you 20% of the profits.
Right.
That's fine. I just bought a share. I just bought 20% of a company for $10,000. Why would that not be legal?
No, what I'm saying is that's totally legal. What I'm saying is selling and buying the share small intervals of time, because that actually makes, like you said, makes the market fluctuate. And the question is really, is the market a good representation of what the business is value? What you said in the beginning is really interesting, because when you talked about GameStop and how much value it's bringing to society at this moment is not very much, right?
Like none.
Although the market is saying that it's a lot, like the stock is going up as if like the business is being very efficient.
Right.
So there's something messed up about it, right? And that's kind of what I'm questioning, because has there ever been in the history of America? I mean, especially with what happened, what collapsed the economy.
Well, it collapsed it in 91, then 97, then 2001, then 2008, and then 2015 we had a small dip, and now, COVID was 2020, so happens very often. Yeah.
In particular, there was a moment they based the movie The Big Short on this.
Oh yeah, 2008, 2007, 2008. Yeah.
I just don't understand exactly, like, how do people make money off of shorting stocks?
Shorting stocks fundamentally are easy to understand in the sense of, if I buy a stock now, then it's pretty simple, the calculation. If the stock price goes up, I make money. If the stock price goes down, I lose money. If I short a stock, I take a reverse position on it. I basically make money if the stock price goes down, and I lose money if the stock price goes up. Now, how does this work in practice? You can actually borrow a stock from someone on the market. So I don't pay them for the stock. Normally, let's say GameStop stocks are $10 right now, right? So normally I'd have to pay you $10 to buy it off of you. But let's say I don't buy it off of you because I want to sell GameStop stock, but I don't want to buy it. So I borrow it from you. And I say, Gabo, can you lend me your GameStop stock for a month? And you go, sure thing. How much you want to pay? How much you want to pay me to borrow the stock? Now, it can't be $10 because it's $10. I'm going to be, Gabo, I might as well just buy the stock. So you got to give me some price that's not $10. So let's say you and I agree. You're like, I'll lend it to you for a month for $1. Yeah. So then I borrow GameStop, your one GameStop stock for $1. Now I have it, right? Now I'm going to short it. I want to sell this right away. So I go find someone else, and somebody's like, hey, I'm looking to buy GameStop stock. I'm like, no problem, dude. I'll sell it to you right now. He's not even going to ask me, is that yours? He doesn't even know.
Right.
He just thinks like, oh, that's like Sanguk's GameStop stock. So he comes to me and buys it from me for $10 straight away, right? So how much money did I make? I lost $1 to you.
You made $9.
$1 is the cost of the fund. Yeah, right. And I sold it for 10, so I made $9.
Right.
Now in a month's time, you're going to come knocking on my door saying, Sanguk, that stock that I lent you, I want it back now as per our agreement, right?
So you have to buy it back.
I have to buy it back. Exactly. So when I buy it back in a month's time, let's say I was correct in my forecast. So in a month's time, the GameStop stock goes from $10 to $5. When you're like, Sanguk, I want my GameStop stock back, I go to the market, I buy it for $5, I give it to you, I'm like, here's your stock. You check it, you're like, yep, this definitely looks like the one I gave you. And I just made $4.
These hedge fund guys are managing like huge amounts of money that once they buy stock or sell stocks, it influences the market heavily. And nobody else has capacity to make an influence in the market unless you have copious amounts of money, right? Like, what would you say? What would you say is like an entry level?
An entry level copious amount of money
for influencing the market.
I mean, in theory, you can influence the market with $1,000, but I would say if people want a reference point, like you'd want $10 million before you'd start moving the market.
It's something like the 1% is gonna do, right? Like the top 0.01%.
Yeah, I don't think the 1% has that money either.
People are expecting the GameStop stock to go down, right? A lot of these hedge funds, dude, start selling these shares.
If they're like, look, it's $10 now. By the time I buy it back, it's gonna be like $7. Like, this is gonna be amazing, right? That's what they're thinking.
So this Reddit guy is called Wall Street Bets.
Well, I'm not even sure if they were the first ones, because Michael Burry, the actual mortgage-backed security guy, right? That guy was like, well, this stock is undervalued. Like, it's going down, but like it shouldn't be going down this much, right? Like, he's looking at that and he's got a bit of money. So he's like, you know what? I'm gonna buy like $10 million worth of this stock probably. So he's gonna put upwards pressure on it, because like the Reddit guys, now any individual investor can look at this and go, hang on a second, this price has gone down just too much. Like, it's like this company is, you know, it's not doing great, but like it shouldn't be worth nothing, right? Like, it should be worth something. And you know, individual investors start piling on it, which suddenly they're buying. So then they're buying at higher prices. So it's pushing the price up. And then you get Wall Street Bets, which is investigating, and these guys are finding out that these hedge funds have made the greediest play of all time by not making a short position on GameStop, thinking that the GameStop stock would go down by 15% or 20%. They actually took a short position thinking that the GameStop stock would go down to 0.
What?
Which is unbelievably greedy.
So like they basically wanted to bankrupt,
like destroy the company. Yeah, like they wanted to bring the stock price, which means the valuation, because 0 multiplied by outstanding shares is still 0. So the company would be valued at nothing. They thought GameStop would go under. So they thought they could buy the shares back for $0 for free, basically. And when Wall Street Bets, these Redditors found that out, the combination of, I think, the ludicrousy of the idea and then the greed of Wall Street that nobody likes propelled these guys to go on a marketing campaign. Effectively, it is a marketing campaign on Reddit going, guys, we're going to send GameStop to the moon, because when these guys buy it back, they think they can buy it back for 0. Wait till they wake up and see the price is like $100, and they have to buy it back for $100. They sold it for 10. You have to buy it for 100, and at some point 300. You just lost $290 for every $10 that you spent. That's an insane ratio. Think about it. Like, usually you only lose the value of your investment. If I invest $10, at most I'll lose $10, right? And it's like, oh, I lost my investment. They invested $10 and they lost 290 times however much they invested in. Like, they ended up having to take like a $30 million loan just to like keep the hedge fund alive. Like, that's the scale we're talking about. Like, the stock price went up so much. These guys had to borrow money, like $30 million, just to keep themselves alive, because they couldn't buy it back. And eventually, the guy they borrowed the stock from is like, "Hey, man, like I did lend it. I didn't give it to you. I lent it to you. So you gotta give it back." Like,
this is somewhat of an exploitable mechanic, don't you think?
In theory, and I said we'd use that term a lot. Let's say that you have a market that's easy to participate in. So the only condition is that anyone can go and buy and sell things in this market. Yeah. Then it's not necessarily exploitable. Yes, 10 million sales of GameStop stock will create an imbalance. There's more sellers than buyers. We agreed that that means the sellers compete with each other, so the price of the GameStop stock goes down. This looks like it's in favor of the short sellers, right? But anyone can participate in this market. I could look at it from the other side and go, wait, hang on a second, the price of GameStop is going down, but they did this whole thing with the e-commerce investment. This doesn't feel right. I think I'm going to be able to buy GameStop stock at a discount. And so what if I, on the other side, have $10 million and I buy $10 million worth of GameStop stock as it's going down? I'll pump it back up and then it'll go back to $10.
Right.
So if the market disagrees with the price, you're pushing it down. But if the market disagrees with you, it'll get pushed back up. by
Right.
other participants in the market, as long as it's easy to participate in the market. There's this principle that we found that these institutional investors who have a lot of money, and we generally don't like people who have that much money, are profiteering from extraordinarily greedy plays. And you kind of want them to pay for it. You have so much money, you're so much richer than I am, and you make decisions this bad, you deserve to be punished.
Yeah.
And this idea that you can punish them as a democracy, that's an enticing idea.
Okay, it's very appealing because you would think that that an honest way to make money is like, you know, something like we're doing, you know, like we provide a service for a company, or
create content.
you create content that is valuable for some people. But you know, this seems to be a way that society agreed upon and said, this is an honest way to make money. You know, nobody's gonna hate you for making a lot of money if you're doing like a really good job, or like if you're putting out something in the world that are some really cool ideas, or you're Elon Musk. You know, nobody cares if Elon Musk is rich.
No one's gonna hate on that, right? Yeah.
So, but when you see this already rich, filthy rich people kind of like exploiting the system to,
and they're not creating anything.
Right, they're not creating any value to society, and they're getting even richer. You're like, what? There's something wrong with that, right? There's something inherently wrong with that, with the way that at least society has like set the rules.
And they're getting richer at a richer rate than the people who are, you know, what we perceive as creating content are, and that's infuriating too. And at least, you know, if you're a investor, like, oh, you know, he gives money to companies, right? Like that makes sense to you, right? But when you're like, you make money bankrupting companies? And it's not like you need the money. You're already millionaires. And you want to become even more millionaire by bankrupting companies? That feels so wrong, right?
Yeah.
But actually, I want to counter argue this, because I've seen that floating around a lot. People are saying shorting is just destructive and terrible, and it's unbelievably greedy. Parts of that sentence I completely agree with. Some of the short positions on GameStop, like thinking it would go to zero, is just stupid, and you should punish people for stupidity. But is shorting inherently an unproductive thing in society? Absolutely not. The Big Short is a movie of people who bet against the American economy, right? There was a problem with the way that we were lending money to people to buy homes, and we had to end that system. Because can you imagine if we didn't have that crash? The world wouldn't have looked better. It wouldn't have been like, oh, we didn't have the crash in 2008. Life is good. We would have continued to lend money to people with no income to buy homes. That would have been insane. That had to crash. And the more people that were piling on the short, the quicker we were able to get to the crash. I mean, it still took very long, but you could argue that, you know, you want to identify problem areas of the market and shut it down before it does too much damage. There's another individual who made a couple of short positions, but it's a guy called Bill Ackman, and he's a hedge fund investor. I don't know if you've heard of him before, but he's so he's a hedge fund investor, so he's not one of the good guys. He's rich, right? He took a large short position in a company called Herbalife a couple of years back. And the reason why he did it, because its entire sales process was a pyramid scheme. He looked into the business and he was like, wait a second, you make money from multi-level marketing. Like that's not actually a good business model. So he shorted to bet against it and go, this is just fundamentally not a good company. You know, I'm going to make money on behalf of my investors because I think this is a good business decision to, you know, cut this company down. But should we let those companies not get shorted and discovered faster this way? Like, it's a lot more powerful. You know, if he just goes like, oh, I don't agree with that company's statement, how many people are really going to do something about it?
Right.
But if we then start selling the shares in the market to reduce the prices down, and it requires someone else on the other side to actually go like, no, actually, I think this is a really good company, you know, to buy the shares. If that's what you create, you are going to shine a light a lot better on companies like this. Shorting is not bad inherently.
I mean, it's nice that the people took some money from
the greedy Wall Street. But I think one final thing I'll say on this is we've actually uncovered a new way of protesting that we've never really used before, which is I want to think about the implications of this going forwards. because I don't think this is going to stop here. Before, when we didn't like what banks were doing, we had Occupy Wall Street, which we were like, you know what, we're going to sit in front of the lawns and that's going to punish them. And it didn't, because what does that really do, right? But now we have arguably the best way of protesting, which is you can make capitalists lose their money by pooling together as a democratic voting bloc and taking the reverse position of what you disagree with. So let's say there's a company, JP Morgan, and let's say that they raised a village in West Africa to fund a oil pipeline, hypothetically, right? Not that I think they would do that, but let's say they did that. Then we could actually democratically just agree to short that company to reduce the share value of those stocks. We could actually do that. Now, then we'd have to pay the premiums. I don't quite know how that'd work out, but this is interesting. Or, if we saw big companies trying to bankrupt small companies, or what about nation states? What about countries that have incredibly high borrowing costs because other countries, pose certain restrictions on them, for example? What if we can lower the borrowing costs by buying their bonds in large quantities? You can actually democratize political moves. I don't think we've seen the end of Wall Street bets. I think actually we opened a Pandora's box of using financial instruments to hurt people whose views we disagree with in terms of how they deploy their capital. I think we've actually opened this great mystical box and we have no idea what the repercussions are quite yet.
I like it, dude. Eat the fucking rich.
Yeah.